Well, hello. Welcome back to another exciting edition of Coffee with Steven. So, this week I am broadcasting from our subarctic forward operating base in Kalispell, Montana, sitting by my instant romance fireplace and looking out at the window at a fairly robust level of snowfall. Um, this week's blog, though, is entitled, Hey, Alec, why not mention the hammer? Now, those of you who've been following the trials and tribulations of the ultimate gunfighter, Alec Baldwin, may be aware that he gave an interview, which is completely outside my scope of understanding. How his defense counsel thought this was a good idea is completely beyond me. My suspicion is that they probably didn't, but Mr. Baldwin decided to do his own thing, which unfortunately is something that we see clients do from time to time. In any event, one of the major components of the interview was a really, really specific statement on the part of Alec Baldwin that he never had his finger on the trigger. In fact, his finger was nowhere even near the trigger guard on the weapon that ultimately ended up taking the life of a cinematographer and actually injuring his assistant director. This is interesting because the weapon that's been constantly referenced is a single action revolver, and while there have been revolvers that have been made with certain safety features built into them, it seems to indicate from everything that's been written about this case that the weapon itself was in fact authentic, that it actually was from the mid 1800s. Well, if that is in fact the case, then the trigger becomes somewhat irrelevant, as the thumb is being pushed back or pulled back on the spur of the hammer. It, in the process of doing so, is actually pulling back the trigger independently. If the thumb slips off of the spur or is just simply to let go, the trigger will allow the hammer itself to cause an ignition of the cartridge in the cylinder. This isn't something that is unknown in the shooting community, right? And it's certainly something that wouldn't be unknown for Mr. Baldwin, especially someone who has been spent a majority of his career on movie sets where weapons were present. Now, even if he didn't understand the functionality of that particular weapon system, the four safety rules of firearms would always be in effect. So the statements that he's made have been, honestly, they don't work well for him. I'm still fascinated to see whether or not the liberal district attorney in New Mexico and that community is going to be willing to actually file charges against what ultimately has been an anti-gun icon. So we'll have to wait and see. In any event, hopefully you'll enjoy the blog and it'll create some level of illumination. As always, I want you to train constantly, train consistently, train repetitively, and train with purpose. Above all else, stay safe.